Mr. Chairman, thank you. I wanted to ask, I know we're talking about individual tax rates and the effect on growth and distribution, but one of the things that seems to me that's looming out there that's going to affect incomes across America is this issue of EPA's action on climate and the regulation of pollutants under the Clean Air Act. And that is going to take effect in January. I mean, companies are going to have to start looking at best available control technology, and that's going to be an expense. Later in July, they're going to, have the full scope of covering facilities that are going to have to make upgrades on emissions, and that cost is going to get passed on to the individual consumers. And that's an expense. That's an expense that is going to affect people moving forward. And I wondered, Dr. Holtz-Eakin, I know you've talked about proposals like we've proposed that would help try to lessen the impact on consumers. Do you think legislation is a better path to reducing the cost on the consumer as opposed to just letting EPA act?
Regardless of one's views on the merits of climate legislation, it is widely recognized that to have the EPA go back to a command and control regime with as many point sources there are for carbon emissions is economically irrational and destructive. There's not one good reason to do this. If you want to take care of carbon emissions, then you should use market forces, as your bill with Senator Collins does, so that there's a price on carbon and people respond appropriately to innovate new technologies that don't emit carbon and substitute away from those that do. I mean, that's a much more rational course.
And isn't there a way to help keep consumers whole during that process?
I think, personally, my opinion is you should not use this as an excuse to grow government, so you should set the price, and the literature says you should cut other taxes, payroll taxes or corporation income taxes, or, in your case, return the funds to as great an extent possible back to the American people.
What do you think that the cost of this will be moving forward? Just letting EPA regulate without acting.
Regulation is a disguised tax, and getting the price tag on this is impossible at the moment because it carries with it, first, the burden of uncertainty. When will the EPA actually be able to finish rulemaking and impose this? It's being litigated, as you know. So there's a real uncertainty cost to businesses. They have no idea what investment choices to make, and they're standing there as a result. Second is, if we go this route, becomes certain that they'll do the rulemaking, there will be tremendously inefficient choices made about how to deal with this problem, and that'll bear a big cost in the economy. I don't even know how to calculate it, but it's a terrible idea, and it's harming the business outlook.
Well, I'm one who has talked to many attorneys about this, and I think the Supreme Court's ruling is pretty definitive on what has to happen. And so the fact that there's two choices, one that is command and control, as you say, or something that allows the market to make better decisions for us. And I think there's some estimates that an auction could generate somewhere between 80 and $100+ billion a year. I would assume that would be revenue that could be better allocated to, again, lessen the impact on consumers.
I guess the number I can't come up with is, you could auction and you could return to consumers, and so the net of that would be zero. The alternative, so I mean, that's just a transfer, but the real question is, if you did the command and control, how much would you impair growth? How much would you lower, as a result, wages and incomes in the economy? And that's, I think, a potentially very large number that we should know.
Yeah, I think definitely there's a more predictable path. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.